Made with passion, made for you. Well, hopefully in a few minutes, this is going to be built with passion and built for me. Now, unfortunately, I am beside myself because my new torque-on has arrived and my tools are in the van. However, the wife has gone out in the van, which leaves me thinking, can I actually get my torque-on up and rolling just with the contents of this box? Right, where do we start? Okay, first of all, we've got 4 box locks on the front and rear of the box, and it says on the top of the box that you need a scissors to unclip the zip ties here. However, going with the mood of this video, I feel like I should stick to my word and maybe use some alternatives. And then you simply turn these and unpop. So there's 8 of those, which means could possibly mean a trip to the dentist. So I highly recommend you possibly nip into the house and get a scissors or a sharp kitchen knife to do this part of the process. So stage 2 then is locks off. 4 locks off, or should I say 8 locks off. Okay, locks off. Next stage, and it says on the top of the box, is take the lid off. Lid off. Now we have a fresh set of instructions. So stages 4, 5 and 6 are unearth your let's get started pack. There she is. Stage 5 is take the packaging out. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to spin it round because I think it's going to reveal a lot better on the other side. So as you can see, the cat wants to get in on the act here. But hopefully you guys will be able to see stage 6, the torque on. There she is. There's the wheel. So cardboard. I highly recommend you keep in one piece because they're great for keeping all kinds of rubbish like cushions and duvets and old magazines and old pieces of stuff from the kitchen which you'd normally put in the attic, but I guarantee you that box will come in handy. Now there's going to be a brief interlude, some light entertainment as I try to tackle the plastic wrapping. Wow, that was actually easier than I thought. So now we have the heart of the bike. We've got the handlebar to bolt on, looks to me, and also the wheel, and we're good to go. So probably time now to find some tools to bolt that on. Time now, I think, to get some rescue tools in the get started package. When I said there's going to be no tools involved, what I meant is none of my tools. So I've got a battery charger and a little bag. Right, now when I said no tools would be involved, what I meant was no tools of mine. I mean, as you can see, you've got a little torque wrench here, Allen keys, and a bit of assembly paste. No, folks, it's not lube, it's assembly paste. Now, lucky for you, you're about to witness a masterclass in handlebar fitting. So I've got the torque wrench out, open my little box of Allen keys, that one fits in. So let's pop these bolts out. Now, there is a torque setting when I put the handlebars back in, but I'm going to fully ignore that. Although I highly recommend you don't fully ignore that. Remember that the display cable goes in the middle of the stem. Now, I usually get a load of grief from my colleagues that I'm not really as obsessed with workshops and bike caves as they are, because in my eyes, I think your workshop should be full of trail building tools rather than tools to be taking your bike apart and putting it back together again. Look, don't get me wrong, I mean, lubing a bike is one thing, but obsessing about dismantling it, I mean, guys, just get out in the hills. Your time is better spent. Right, this next stage, folks, I don't want any of you to get it wrong. This really is critical. So as you can see, you probably will have a trailing cable coming out of the down tube, which is actually a display. It's actually the motor or battery lead, can't remember which one, but it pops in. Let me see if I can get you this click. It's like a little click, and there is actually a tool. If you feel you haven't got the click in, don't go pulling that lead out like I just did then, because there is a danger of pulling it out of its socket. So there's a little tool somewhere which you can use to do that. But if you are pulling it in and out, make sure you've got the hold of the kind of the thicker end of it if you're taking it in and out. But like I said, it pops in, give you that click again, and she's in. So that goes in the second port. So if you, by any chance, your lead from the display is dismantled, put that one into the first port, and then the one that comes out of the down tube into the second port. Now, so far in this masterclass, all I've actually used is a 5mm. This is remarkable. Now, just got to put the wheel in. So, pop it up, pop the axle out. There is a spacer in the brake caliper. Pop that red spacer out. There it is. You won't need that. Well, you might need it if you're going traveling. And then pop the little beauty in, and there is a location for your axle. I'm thinking and hoping that's already done for me. Oh yeah, so that should be in line with the fork leg. So looking at it, the bike is actually not far off. It's a stunner, isn't it? Right, now then, let's do some fine tuning here. Now, when I say fine-tuning, what I actually mean is tilting the handlebars forwards or rearwards to get your individual feel to the bike, and maybe adding or removing stem spacers to move your handlebar upwards or downwards. Remember, there are a few other things, such as the tyre pressure. Now, that is arguably the one tool that this box does not have, is a pump. But what it does have is a shock pump, because that is another job which you need to do before you hit the trails. So setting suspension up isn't a dark art. Stand on the bike, get the sag right. If you're worried about sag, there's countless videos. We've got them on EMBN or indeed GMBN. Dottie's got a good video on that. And I think you're good to go. Now, I can't actually believe that all I've done so far is use a 5mm Allen key to put those handlebars in. It's pretty mind-blowing, actually. All you need to do now is do those few things I just mentioned, hit the trails. But what about the fine details of this Canyon Talk On? Now, as I mentioned earlier, I am pretty blown away just how burly this bike is, and there's not a sniff of carbon fibre on it. Well, true, there is a plastic mudguard up front, but from front to back, this bike is all action. 27.5-inch wheels. We've got some heavy-duty rubber on there, a Maxxis Minion DHF up front and a DHR Minion on the rear. Those are in downhill casing, double down, and Exo Plus on the back. In terms of the travel on this bike, 180mm up front, 175mm on the back. As you can see, we've got a shiny bit of Kashima coating to the fork and also the shock there. Both the front and the rear dampers have got a whole range of adjustments on there, so you can really fine-tune this bike. Obviously, as a gravity freeride orientated bike, it has got a strong suspension tune to it. So you've got a very supple first part of the travel, a very stable mid-stroke to the bike. So when you're involved in those big collisions of rocks and roots, the bike stays, pretty well balanced. And then you've got a big progressive end to the stroke. So when you get into those big G-outs, it holds you in a good central position. Now, in terms of the sizing, there's 4 sizes on the Torque-On: small, medium, large and extra large. I'm 6 foot, I ride a size large. I think the reach on it is 485 millimeters. But what it does mean is that there's a good size there for people who are 6 foot and plus. In terms of componentry, as you can see, there's a really good wide range cassette on there. I think it's 1152, but it goes 11 to 44, and then there's a big jump up to that big sprocket on the back, which means it's really good for replicating the kind of uplift runs which you might do on this bike. As I mentioned, all action, and up front, a 220mm rotor up front on this bike, 200mm on the rear. The wheels on this bike are certainly built for some strong abuse. They are the hybrid DT Swiss H1700s. As I mentioned, they are alloy wheels. 35mm width on the rear and 30mm up front. The heart of this bike is, of course, the Shimano EP8 motor. But it's in the battery department, which this bike is pretty interesting. Now, you can get 4 versions of the Torque-On. You can get the 9 or the 8 with the option of getting a spare battery for each bike. Now, the reason Canyon have done this is because it's more about getting the laps in than about range. So if you've got, like, as this bike comes in, is a 504 watt-hour battery in it, so you can maybe do a morning and then have some lunch and swap the battery out for another attack of the bike park in the afternoon. And as I mentioned, it's about getting the weight low down into that down tube there. The Shimano EP8 is a incredibly interesting motor, and there's so many features on it. Now, you can actually have 2 profiles which are customizable up on your display. So you can go for a bike which has got more range, or you can go for a bike which has got more power. Obviously, this will come into effect if you've got a downhill track which is accessed by a super technical hill climb, so you might want to go for the higher power output to do those climbs. Indeed, it is, I think, much more than a bike park bike, and I think this bike in some big alpine mountain terrain really would be a fantastic bike. So what else? Well, it's got a wide bar, it's got a short stem, it's got a seat dropper. In terms of the geometry, you've got a 63.5-degree head angle there. It's got a long wheelbase, it's got a 430mm chainstay, which means it hints at a bike which is going to be absolutely storming those tight corners. But more than anything, folks, I think it's proved that you can actually build a bike from a box without any of your own tools. Like I said, 1 5mm Allen key was all it took for me to get that together. I've now put some air in the fork and in the shock. I'm going to put some air in the tyres as well. I get a pump, so yeah, you could argue that it does need 1 tool. And we're good to go. Just that battery charger, get the 504 pumped up with some juice and hit those downhill trails. Folks, let us know if you've got any thoughts or any questions about building an e-mounted bike from a box. I certainly haven't, because it is really, really easy.